Kobe, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How's your first week of retirement?
It's been good. It's been good. I wish I could say I've been relaxing, but I haven't.
You leave with a 60-point game, and we had a chance to talk right after the game. Very few people can leave like that, but does it cause you to retrace in your brain, perhaps I can still do this, maybe I'm leaving a little bit too early instead of a little bit too soon?
It could, but I consider myself very lucky because I didn't stop playing the game because I didn't feel like I could play at a certain level anymore. I stopped playing because I just didn't want to do it anymore. I think it's just part of evolution. I felt like I wanted to move on to something else, and my passion and my focus started shifting towards what comes next versus being completely obsessed with the game itself.
What was your expectation of yourself and your goal when you came into the league?
God, it's hard to remember back that long. I remember being extremely excited, but also being extremely focused because there was a lot of talk as to whether or not I was making the right decision. And there's a lot of people that were saying I was going to be a failure. And so I remember my concentration being extremely, extremely high and not having even one day to really enjoy it or celebrate it. I was back at the gym.
Was it your goal to be the best basketball player on the planet?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Did you achieve that?
Well, it's funny, like as a kid, I was growing up and I said, I want to be the greatest that ever played, right? And then as you get older, you start understanding that there's no real answer to that. Right? And I found a lot of comfort once I realized that my goal really is to be the best player I can be. And then what that means helping my teammates be the best players that they can be. That's what I had to do. And it was a lot of research for me. It was a lot of reading. It was a lot of studying. It was a lot of listening and try to really figure out what makes people tick. And how do you motivate your teammates? It's one thing to say, do this, do that. But how do you really motivate them to the point where they feel where they're the ones asking the questions of how to improve themselves? Like, how do you help somebody flip the switch within themselves to want to reach their full potential? Well, there's that aspect to it, but there's also the aspect where you really have an opportunity to make a lot of people happy. They come up to you in the street, shake your hand, they want to talk about being at the 81-point game or the 60-point game, and you get a chance to make a lot of people happy. So, it's easy to look at the negative side of those things, but I think the positives vastly outweigh the negatives.
No friends?
Yeah.
No. These are his words, folks.
Yeah.
Not mine.
A lot of that's tongue in cheek. But that's my point. It's not a sacrifice to me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a sacrifice. Like, this is my choice. Like, I'd rather do this. Like, if you put a bowl of ice cream in front of the kid and a plate of broccoli, the kid's probably going to eat the ice cream, right? And so to me, the game is the ice cream. To some people on the outside, all this hard work looks like broccoli. It's all perspective.
How much do you detest a lack of hard work and despise lazy?
It drives me crazy. I don't understand it. But at the same time, I talk to my kids about hard work and stuff, and I say, honey, you can either be the lion or you can be the gazelle. Nature needs both. Right? So you got to have hardworking people, you have to have lazy people. It's the balance of all things, right? So I'd much rather you be the lion, but if you want to be the gazelle, honey, be the fastest gazelle in the world, Well, with Shaq, it was interesting. With Shaq, I had to challenge Shaq all the time. All the time. I mean, we'd be in practice, and Mark Madsen, who was on the second team, and Mark would be, Mark's like full of energy all the time, and like we're coming off of a back-to-back, and Phil never gave us days off, right? We show up to practice, and Mark's just running into Shaq, and just, Shaq's just trying not to get hurt at this point, and I would just go to Phil and say, Phil, hey, put me on the second team. So he put me on the second team, and now I'm playing with Mark, and all it takes is just one thing. I said, Shaq, you are not the most dominant center of all time. You're not even the best player on the team. then that's it. Then all of a sudden it's trash talking all day. You know, the physicality of the practice goes to another level. Right? And that's really the key. It's not keeping yourself busy. It's like you have to figure out what it is that you really want to do. Like wake up in the morning and say, yo, I'm excited to go do this. What is that? Once you figure that out, everything will be fine.
Best player you ever faced?
We counting Michael Jordan in that or no?
Sure.
Yeah, it's Michael.
He would be ever, right? Michael.
Michael, no question.
And now, current day?
Let's see. The hardest player I had to defend was Kevin Durant. He gave me the most problems because of his length and his versatility. He's the one I had trouble guarding the most.
How's your family dealt with having to share their father and their husband with the world?
No, they've been great. You know, they've been around me, you know, doing the training and recovery. Like they've been a part of the process, you know. And they were really happy. You know, the last game when I scored 60, it was like, whoa, Dad, what was that? You know what I mean? Because they hadn't seen that, you know. And so it felt good to kind of take them down memory lane a little bit and say, you know, your dad used to be really, really good. You know? Yeah, I mean, because this is what the fans came to see. You know, it was like, you know, this was the moment to say goodbye, and you know, I wanted to be able to say bye. And I called my wife before the game, and I said, it feels like everybody wants to be sad. You know, I'm not sad. Like, hopefully, we can make this night some type of celebration where I can give them something where they're not thinking about the fact that this is my last game. Like, they're just thinking about this is a hell of a game to watch. Right. Well, back then it was like you have to look at those performances and nitpick every little thing to learn from.
Kobe, congratulations. It's been a wonderful career. It's been my honor to have been able to cover you. I did the first interview you ever did. You allowed me to do the last interview in your Laker uniform. It's been a privilege, and thank you for all you've given.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.